A few days back, I was talking to my good friend Aaron Sparrow, and he mentioned he actually watched Black Panther Wakanda Forever, something I wasn't really interested in. I said, hey, if I watched that, would you want to do a review with me? He said, hell yeah, I do. So we're going to talk about Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Aaron Sparrow, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. Yeah, I'll agree to anything.
So I finally watched the movie, and just up front, my general feeling is that this wasn't a very well put together film. It's way too bloated. It's really, really long. There are certainly some strong aspects of the film and the directing especially, but I think for the most part, it fell flat.
I would agree. I think that, we're a little late on this review, obviously, but I think that this is the new normal. It seems with Marvel's box office, seems like people are willing to wait. So we're willing to wait to watch it. So if you guys are willing to wait to hear our thoughts on it, you're in the right place.
So obviously the big thing people knew was going to happen, that, obviously we had the untimely death of Chadwick Boseman. So they kill off T'Challa, the Black Panther, in the opening scenes of the movie. And for the most part, especially the opening scene and the very last scene, I thought T'Challa's death was very, very impactful, kind of tugged at the heartstrings. Although in the middle, they keep going back to it, diverting from the main plot to talk about him being dead. And I thought it bloated out the movie and made it far too long. And they never hit quite as strong as that very beginning or the end.
No, it kind of started to dilute it after a while. You're like, oh, we're going back to this, and there was so much else going on in the movie and such a looming threat that it felt like that should have been the focus. And to keep going back, they had to keep reminding you because they had to keep justifying Shuri's the direction that she was going in, or the direction that she might go in, and they kept trying to belabor that by showing you the pain that she was in. And I don't think it worked in the middle of the film. I think it was established at the beginning. You didn't need to do that. You could have cut all that out.
But for the most part, that does not really detract from the movie. It just kind of expands it a little bit with the runtime, which is unbearable. But the plot itself is really, a lot of it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, especially the antagonist and his motivations and how he plays into this. Obviously, the antagonist being Namor himself.
Oh, you mean
I had a hard, well, whatever he wants to call himself.
The boy
I had a hard time.
The boy who wasn't loved.
You're cutting in for that? Come on, Aaron, let me speak.
I'm making fun of shit.
We'll get to that stuff. I honestly had a hard time deciphering who are the good guys in here. Because in the opening, we've got Shuri and Okoye need to leave Wakanda to go to the U.S. to find the scientist that has discovered how to find vibranium underneath the ocean. Like, they're essentially kidnapping a U.S. citizen against her will. And then when the FBI and police show up doing their jobs, they start murdering all of them. Like, are these the good guys or not?
They blow up all those cops on the bridge. And I'm like,
yes.
There's that explosion and all the cars go flying. And I was like, there was guys on the other side of those cars. They're all dead now, right? Like, they just murdered a bunch of police officers on American soil. And it goes back to that really cringy thing from Falcon and the Winter Soldier, where they're told that they don't have jurisdiction. And they said that the Dora Milaje have jurisdiction wherever they find themselves. And it's like, yeah, no, that's not true.
I will say this. The Wakandans come off as condescending, as big assholes as ever. They're definitely the least heroic heroes in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, in my opinion. That's definitely put full in force here. The real standout for me, I guess, is Queen Ramonda. Like, that's the best portrayal in the entire movie. It's the most powerful character in the entire movie, like her story arc, but she's not really the main character. So we get this new Black Panther being Shuri, but she doesn't really ascend to being the Black Panther. She just kind of makes the synthetic herb, and then she is the Black Panther. And I think we never got a Black Panther origin story for the first movie. He just shows up in Civil War, and they continue it from there. I think this was a good spot to actually do a Black Panther origin story if they wanted to use Shuri, although I wouldn't have, because, quite frankly, she's so skinny. Even when she was the Black Panther, it's hard to take her seriously as somebody that can actually be physical. They should have used Okoye or even Queen Ramonda herself. It looked like Angela Bassett was in pretty good fighting shape there. So I think they kind of dropped the ball with Shuri ascending to be the Black Panther, because she really didn't do that. She just becomes the Black Panther.
No, there's so many problems with this movie structurally, and the way it was executed. We could go through, so many of them. The opening scene doesn't really endear the Wakandans to anybody. Like, there's a complete reversal of, at the UN of like the direction that T'Challa was taking things at the end of the first Black Panther film. Ramonda pulls back And, that's fine. Contempt for the UN. I get it. But, like you start out with that. And then, you keep going through, like, Namor's motivations are all over the place. They shift and they change. He doesn't want to be discovered. That's his big thing. I don't want my people to be discovered. Then he's going to wage war on the entire surface world. Just a complete shift that doesn't make any sense. The fact that the US government is using a machine built by Riri Williams that they don't like get the schematics and they don't build more than one. They just take the prototype down to the bottom of the ocean. It's just such an obvious MacGuffin. There's so many things in this movie where it's like they needed something to happen, so they just built around that instead of thinking how would this logically go. The vibranium machine is one of them. The inclusion of Riri Williams, she's completely unnecessary in this movie. There's a ton of problems.
Yeah, it almost felt like Ryan Coogler, who's a really good writer and director, knew how he wanted to start the movie, and he knew how he wanted to finish the movie, because it was really, him saying goodbye to Chadwick Boseman, the actor that portrayed the Black Panther before, and then the stuff in the middle, he just kind of willy-nilly threw it in there. Like at one point, I thought I was watching the end of the movie, and Queen Ramonda actually dies, and then there's another 50 minutes. I couldn't believe it. I thought I was watching the end. Like there's this moment. Like, why kill off Queen Ramonda? It did nothing to further the story. You've already had the death of a major character, the major character in there. Shuri already has her motivations. And then you have this actress, Angela Bassett, that's basically carrying the movie at this point. And then you kill her off. And then the last 50 minutes, you have no one that's actually capable of carrying the movie to the end.
No, and it's such a strange way to do it, because it's like, on the one hand, you're trying to honor Chadwick Boseman, and it feels sincere on the part of Ryan Coogler, but then in the marketing, it felt very insincere on the part of Disney and Marvel, because it felt like they were actually trying to profiteer off of the real life tragedy of his untimely passing. So you get that emotional resonance, and you feel bad about this not only the character dying, but this loss of life in real life. This young man cut down in his prime, and then they kill Queen Ramonda, a fictional character, and they do another funeral and try and have like that. And it's like, okay, so now you're mixing the fiction with the real, in another way. And it just feels really uneven. And like by the middle of the movie, I didn't really know how to feel. And I was so invested in Ramonda because, one thing I will praise about this movie is, first of all, Angela Bassett, I don't know how old she is. I think she's like in her 60s. Still an absolute smoke show. She is jacked in this movie. She looks great. She is just like unbelievably flawless. Her performance, I mean, in other movies, I've always thought she has a tendency to overact a little bit. Like if you go watch Vampire in Brooklyn, that's a comedy, but she's playing it as straight as she possibly can and really kind of overacting. Here, she does a phenomenal job. Like when she has her scene with Okoye where she's stripping her of her rank for, getting Shuri kidnapped, failing to protect her, is really heartbreaking. Like when she goes into that, have I not given everything?
Have I not given everything?
Because that's what Okoye says to her. Okoye says, I've given everything. And then she's like, oh, you haven't given everything. You haven't given half as much as I have, and launches into that whole thing. It's really powerful. And that's one of the moments of the movie that shines. And that's clearly, this is what Ryan Coogler was really interested in, really invested in, was those scenes. And they work. But so you're invested in her character. She's the main character for most of the movie, it seems. And then she dies, and then Shuri kind of takes over. And it doesn't work.
Not really. We'll talk about the two big additions, obviously Namor and Riri Williams here in a moment. But before we get out of this part, I do want to mention Everett Ross commits multiple acts of treason against the United States government, being a CIA agent, divulging secrets to a foreign entity so they could go and kidnap a U.S. citizen, getting multiple FBI agents and police officers murdered in the process. And he just comes off as such a terrible person in this. Like he's an agent of the United States government that's just working for the Wakandans. I could not believe it.
Yeah, no, he's essentially a spy at this point, and it's kind of ridiculous. He doesn't come off well in this movie. I thought, although I really enjoy every moment that Winston Duke is on screen, as a character, he seemed really dumb in this movie. Like
Mako, yeah,
the Atlanteans are attacking and they're flooding Wakanda, which they never explain how they do that. First of all, how do they keep getting to Wakanda? If you look at Wakanda on the fictional
it's in the
map,
middle of it's landlocked.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, so there's rivers, but how do they get these big armies there, supposedly, to do all this attacking? The water's just coming in. It's like, where's this water coming from? At one point, Namor throws a handful of their water grenades into, the throne room, and they explode, and apparently they fill up the entire high rise. And it's like,
this is what I don't get, Aaron. Why would Atlanteans have water bombs? They live underwater. It appears that they haven't visited the surface at all. What would be the purpose of adding more water when you're underneath the ocean?
Well, it explodes. It throws you around. I don't know.
It wouldn't do anything.
Why does Wakanda keep saying that they're the most powerful nation on Earth? And at best, we've seen them marshal 300 soldiers with spears. I don't care who you are. If you want to put that and like what, 4 fighters, they don't have air superiority. They don't have troop superiority. All they have is vibranium, which in this movie just becomes even more bullshit than it's been so far in the MCU. It's basically just magic. It can do whatever you need it to do.
They do have the Dora Milaje, and I will give Coogler credit for this. Until this moment in the MCU, they're pretty much invulnerable to everything. They fought Thanos and the Black Order, and none of them took a black eye, a punch, or anything. So at least Namor was able to beat them up. But Namor is super overpowered here. Like, what are his limitations? He seemed like he was as powerful, if not more powerful, than Thanos.
But he's super, and they describe him as being having the potential to be as strong as the Hulk. But there's a part where he punches M'Baku in the chest and shatters M'Baku's chest armor, and M'Baku flies back like 40 feet and crashes into like a structure.
I thought he was dead.
And I thought so too. I thought, oh shit, they just killed M'Baku. And then he gets up and he's fine. And it's like, there's no vibranium underneath. You can see his bare chest. It's like, that should have killed him. So the power levels again in the MCU are like all over the place. It's like everything is so contrived. It's like, what do you need it to be in this moment? And there's no overarching like rules to any of this.
Namor, just in general, to me, and everything associated with him, is an absolute train wreck in this movie. The actor portraying Namor is not the least bit intimidating ever. It's hard to take him seriously as a villain. The origin tries to paint him as sympathetic, tying the origins of the Atlanteans in this movie to the Spanish conquistadors who drove his mom and her people off the island, and she was pregnant and she took the magic herb, and then she had him in the water, and that's why he's the only one that can fly and can live outside of water. Why didn't they go kidnap more women that were pregnant and make them eat that herb to make more Namors? I don't know. It kind of doesn't make sense. So they try to make him super duper sympathetic, showing the conquistadors. He's trying to bury his mom. They're whipping people and stuff. He ends up burning down their facility or whatever. But he's been shown to be able to beat the entire Wakandan army with all their vibranium single-handedly. He did not need any help to do any of that. Why did he just let all these people be enslaved for all these years? He had the power to put it all to an end by himself, and he didn't do anything. Is he the good guy or is he the bad guy? I was so confused.
Why is it that when the Tulicans, not the Atlanteans, because we can't say Atlantis, it's got to be this other thing. Why, when they attack the mining station at the beginning, why does Lake Bell only shoot the chest plate of Atuma? Like she starts opening fire, and it's just like right here on the chest plate, and it's like he's got his whole dad gut and everything exposed. Like, and
I can tell you, as somebody that was in the military, you are aimed to shoot squarely in the chest. That's the kill shot.
But there's still so much more. There's still so much more of him.
But why are the Atlanteans more powerful outside of the water than they are when they're in the water? You would think being outside of the water would be the weakness for all of them, but Namor.
And they introduce like sirens, like the Namor's army has. Namor, because we had to change it. I kept finding myself wishing that they had, like, as I was watching it, I was like, if this was just some other character, some other, that they made up, I'd probably be a lot more on board than I am. But just the way that they kind of it's not Namor. It's just this new character. It's this whole new race. It doesn't mesh with the comic books. I wasn't interested. The actor's not very charismatic, I didn't think. When he comes up out of the water, like you said, he's not intimidating. He seems short, and he's not kind cut. Of pudgy. He's not he doesn't look in great shape. And a lot of the Tulicans, why are so many of them fat? They swim everywhere. But there's a lot.
There's a lot of stuff we can say about that. The most embarrassing scene of the entire movie is when you see it in the trailer when he goes down and there's this big shark teeth thing, and he's supposed to be giving this enormously big speech to get all the Atlanteans really excited to go and kill the Wakandans, whatever. But like the voice was so off, like when he was speaking and when you could hear it, it almost felt like I was watching Baby Geniuses or something, or like a movie where a dog is talking with the human voice. And the mouth never quite lines up. It just looked like crap.
They tried to do like some kind of like vibrato on him that made it sound like it was carrying underwater, like they were trying to justify the fact that
it sounded like he was on a megaphone.
Yeah, it sounded really bad, and it wasn't a very inspiring speech. He's just not a very inspiring presence.
Well, why does he want to kill the entire surface world? Because somebody's discovered vibranium, not even where he lives. And even if they did find out where he lives, no one can go and attack him. No one can survive under those conditions. No one would be able to defeat his army. If he really wanted to be left alone, he would just sit there. Why does he even show himself?
Well, I don't know. It seems like it's pretty easy to get into. I mean, Nakia gets into his, into his little base and rescues Shuri and Riri Williams.
That's a cave that's like on the outskirts. I'm talking about the actual city itself, where he has to stick his hand through a hole and a tide shows up and it zips you down to the city, and you have to have special equipment just to be there.
Because it'll crush you if you're, it's really, well, James Cameron would eventually find the city, on one of his diving expeditions. But no, there's just a lot of things in this that are just kind of thrown in there because they needed to be there for the script to work. And that's always a bad play. All of these Marvel movies now feel like there's so many reshoots and there's so many things that get cobbled together after the fact. We need something here, we need something there, that there's no through line anymore. Everything just kind of becomes a jumbled mess of storytelling that doesn't really work. Like Namor goes from, hey, listen, they've got this vibranium machine created by this scientist, and it's your fault, Wakanda, for revealing vibranium to the world. So you need to go bring me this scientist so I can murder her. And
they go and they get the scientist. They don't even get to bring her back. They just intervene all of a sudden in the middle of it.
Yeah, the Atlanteans know that they're going to be crossing this bridge somehow. It's never explained how. So they start trying to get Riri. Instead of coming up onto the bridge and kill her when she's down, when everybody's down, they like hook her and then are trying to drag her into the water. It's like none of the motivations here makes sense. None of this works.
Well, especially Riri Williams, she's completely pointless to the entire story, other than being the person that invented the machine that discovered vibranium. But who gives a crap? That's not important to the story itself. She's completely redundant because she's basically just Shuri. Mm-hmm. Like you have the exact same character twice, except she builds an armor, which I guess is different from what Shuri does, but they have the exact same power sets. They're both super young geniuses, all that stuff. She's murdering police left and right. Is she supposed to be a good guy or a bad guy? The only good thing, I guess, is that, we are the MCU and they want all their female protagonists to be portrayed as perfect. So even when she's murdering people, no one calls her on it. They're just like, man, you're smart.
Well, and you have that moment too where it's like within 2 seconds of meeting her, Okoye is like, "Oh, I like her." Like, why? Why? All she said is one sarcastic thing to you, and you're like, "Oh, I like it." Yeah. I'm so tired of that. I'm so tired of like the validation. Like, no, these characters should have conflict. You're there to kidnap her, and I guess Riri's supposed to be the comic relief because they give her like a lot of kind of like everyman kind of like reactions to things, but the actress can't pull it off. She's not funny. There's a line that like is supposed to be funny where that's really clumsy, where Okoye says, you need to consider your options, and then she says, you need to consider the way you look with that ash up on your head, and I'm like, that doesn't work. That's stupid. It's a stupid line.
The only person that delivers good ashy jokes is me on Jermaine Dargan. Putting that out there. This is a pointless character.
You threw me now. Yeah, no, she's absolutely pointless in the film. She's just there to advertise show that has now been delayed, possibly canceled. And like every one of these characters, Cassie in Ant-Man 3, insufferable. Riri Williams, boring. Kate Bishop, not bad, better than the comics. But like all these characters that they're going to put in the Young Avengers, they all have the same just smart-ass, kind of smug, self-satisfied attitude. What a horrible dumpster fire a Young Avengers film is going to be at this point.
Well, I think it's going to be a show, but it doesn't really matter. They're all going to suck together. There's no reason to watch any of this stuff. So it really sidelines the story to include Riri Williams, and it just ends up bloating it out. Like I said, with 50 minutes left in the movie, I thought it was coming to an end. I thought we were hitting the ending. I was like, okay, interesting stuff here. And I was like, 50 more minutes of this. And it's so long, and it feels like it's 4 hours, even though I guess it's 3.
Yeah, I felt like it was not going to end. It was kind of I was watching a Transformers movie once, and my friend actually said, she said, I feel like they're still shooting this movie and just shipping additional footage to the streaming service right now, because I felt like this needed to end like 4 times already.
So I think if you go to see Black Panther Wakanda Forever, strictly for the death of Chadwick Boseman, being the actor that portrayed Black Panther, and saying goodbye, you will be touched, because there are some moments, specifically the beginning and the end, that are actually very poignant. They're well executed, and they certainly bring it up more than enough in the middle of the movie. If you show up to Black Panther Wakanda Forever hoping to see a really good MCU movie, or just a good superhero movie, or some type of origin story for the new Black Panther, or anything exciting, really, you're just going to be disappointed, because it just kind of sucks.
No, it's like you watch the beginning for kind of the nice send-off for Chadwick Boseman, and you can go to the end and you can watch the last scene with Letitia Wright, which I think she really nailed, where she's just kind of emotional and sitting on the beach. I thought that was very well directed, very well acted. Those are the only, and then, watch the scene with Queen Ramonda dressing down Okoye and stripping her. By the way, not stripping her the way that you weirdos probably want, but stripping her of her rank and title. By the way, Nakia, another character that's totally unnecessary in this movie. It's nice to see Lupita. I think she's gorgeous. I think she's good in the role. She has some good scenes, but that should have been Okoye's mission to go. Okoye should have gone rogue and gone down.
How's this? Okoye should be Black Panther.
Yeah, I don't know that. I don't know that interests me any more than.
It makes sense for the character and the universe that they're in. If they wanted a female to be the Black Panther, Okoye makes sense. Shuri just doesn't. She's a computer nerd. She's not an action superhero. She's the person in the ear of the person actually saving people. Okoye at least has the training and the physicality. They should have recast Black Panther, period. That's the way to do it. But if they had to go down this road, she would have been the better choice.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I think they should have recast Black Panther. I think that it's an important role. I think that there's people out there who've said that Chadwick Boseman wouldn't have wanted them to do away with the character, but maybe they had conversations with him. I don't know. I don't know exactly how this all panned out, but it's an important character to the MCU. It's a character they needed, especially since they no longer have Captain America, they no longer have Iron Man, and they just ruined Thor. You kind of needed one of those popular characters from the first couple of phases of the MCU to base things around and
lead the Avengers eventually.
Yeah, but unfortunately, we don't have that. We didn't get that option. So what we're left with is, yeah, you're absolutely right. Okoye should have been the Black Panther.
Or Ramonda. I would have taken that too. Like I said, she's in fighting shape. Whatever.
Yeah, and she takes the herb. She takes the magic bullshit herb, which I don't understand how you 3D print an herb, a magic herb, and have it work.
I don't understand. We're talking about stuff I don't understand. I don't understand how the bracelet from Namor's mom that contains his DNA helps her finish the herb.
Because
what the fuck does one have to do with the other?
It's like when Tony Stark created a new element in Iron Man 2. It just, all right, sure, why not? I always feel like Ryan George in these things where like just something completely implausible and out of left field happens. Like, we 3D printed the herb. This magic bracelet. Let me finally solve it and print it. And now it works just like, a thing that grew organically. I always just feel like Ryan George going, sure, that might as well happen. Because who cares at this point? The filmmakers didn't.
Oh, man, you had the perfect ending. Why'd you do the filmmakers part?
You can cut it.
I'm not editing this. It's going to be Mana. At the end of the review there, Aaron did mention that they destroyed Thor. Well, I say they destroyed him twice. I thought Thor Ragnarok was terrible, and I thought Thor Love and Thunder was even worse. The end of the character. Aaron and I actually broke this down. Full review on one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life. This makes Black Panther Wakanda Forever look like Citizen fucking Kane. I'm not even joking. You don't see the video here. There's also a link in the video description.